She lost everything, her world, her tribe, her child, until a human stepped in. He didn't ask where the little girl came from. He didn't care that she had violet skin and glowing eyes. He only saw a child who needed saving, and became the father no one else would. Now, the mother watches from the shadows, heart torn between gratitude and something deeper. Every time he holds her daughter, she aches. And when she whispers, "Take me too, human," it's not just longing. It's the beginning of everything. She wasn't supposed to survive. Not when the sky broke open over the colony world of Saphen 3. Not when the ground split and swallowed families whole. Not when the smoke took the air, and the wind carried screams farther than any prayer. But somehow, her daughter had survived. That's the part that still haunted Karel. Not that she had lost her home, her people, her mate, but that her daughter, Vila, had been ripped from her arms in the chaos and somehow ended up in the hands of a human. A human she didn't even know. When she first saw him, tall, broad, bloodied at the temple, holding Vila like she was something sacred, Karel's first reaction had been rage. Who was he to touch her child? But Vila's small voice had whispered a name she had never spoken before. Cain. Karel had hesitated. Then Vila's arms wrapped tightly around his neck, her body clinging not out of fear, but comfort. And Karel realized something awful and beautiful at once. Her child felt safe. Cain Thorne hadn't intended to find anyone alive. His mission was basic: search for survivors after the tectonic breach event, recover black box data, flag collapse structures for drone scanning. Standard UEC relief operation. The moment he'd heard the faint cries from the rubble, protocol evaporated. He dug with his bare hands until they bled. He pried apart metal struts fused by plasma bursts. He crawled into the collapsed nursery tower despite warnings of secondary quakes. And in the dust, he found her. Small. Trembling. Violet-skinned. Her fingers slick with ash and tears. She didn't speak his language, not at first, but her eyes said everything. He wrapped her in his coat. She didn't resist. Just whispered something in that musical alien tongue. And as they waited for the evac drone, Cain did something he hadn't done in years. He held her close. Like family. The medics on the orbiting relief cruiser tried to separate them. She should be isolated, species mismatch, potential immune risk. But Cain's tone was final. She's staying with me. The child refused to let go. Any attempt to move her made her scream. One of the medical techs, a woman from Vesta Prime, finally relented. She's imprinted on him. Emotionally. Might be better to let her stabilize before separation. So they let him keep her. 2 days turned to 5. Then 10. By then, she had learned to say his name in the Earth tongue. And Cain had started to dream again. Something that hadn't happened since the fall of New Florence. Karel had spent 12 days buried. When the drones finally found her, dehydration had sunken her cheeks, and blood loss had made her cold. They dragged her from the collapsed storage tunnel and lifted her onto a stretcher. She woke in the medical dome. First words from her lips were Vila's name. The doctors tried to calm her. They told her others had survived. That children had been rescued. But they didn't say her daughter's name. So Karel ripped out her IVs. She stormed out into the cold white corridors, dressed in nothing but a thermal wrap. She interrogated everyone: crew, patients, relief volunteers. One name kept coming up. Cain Thorne. The human. When Karel finally found him, he was in the makeshift garden wing, sitting on a metal bench beside a heat lamp. Vila was in his lap, playing with a broken circuit board like it was a toy. Karel froze. Vila saw her, and lit up like a sunbeam. Mother. The next moments were blurry. Tears. Running. Arms. Her daughter's heartbeat thudding against hers. Karel wept openly. She hadn't cried since the quake. But then she looked up, and saw Cain. Standing back. Silent. Like he didn't belong. Like he was waiting for her to take Vila away and vanish. But she didn't. Instead, Karel took Vila's hand and walked over to him. She bowed, deeply. A gesture of sacred debt. "I am Karel," she said, her voice hoarse. "You saved my blood. My soul. I am yours in honor." Cain shifted uncomfortably. "You don't owe me anything." Karel looked at him for a long time. "No," she said. "But I give it freely." They were placed in shared housing. Temporary, the doctors said. Easier to manage, they said. But days turned into weeks. Cain taught Vila how to read standard Galactic script. Karel watched him from across the dining unit as he explained human proverbs in broken Zalanan. He burned the food once. Laughed when he dropped a mug. She started to laugh too. Then the nights came. Carell began to dream again, fragmented memories of her mate's voice, her child's first steps, and Kane's arms lifting rubble like it weighed nothing. She started to feel again. That terrified her most. One night, while Vila slept in a repurposed medbed, Carell stood by the observation window and spoke quietly. "Why did you save her?" Kane didn't turn around. "Because no one else was going to. You could have left her. She's not your kind." "I don't care about kind," he said. "I care about life." Carell stepped closer. "You are strange. For a human." He finally looked at her. "You're not what I expected either." She studied him. His face bore scars. Faint but real. His eyes carried storms of their own. "You've lost someone too," she said. Kane nodded once. "A long time ago." Carell whispered, "Then perhaps, we both understand more than we say." The first time she touched his hand, it was accidental. Their fingers met while passing a data pad. She didn't pull away. Neither did he. Later that night, she sat beside him while Vila slept. No words. Just silence. His hand found hers again. This time, it was intentional. Carell began to volunteer in the nursery for displaced children. Her soothing voice calmed infants. Her presence made others feel safe. Kane worked longer shifts in the engineering bay, helping restore atmosphere regulators for the next colony dome. Each evening, they returned to the same housing unit. Carell prepared food in human fashion. Kane tried Xalanin tea, choked on it. She laughed. Vila drew pictures, one of them all holding hands beneath a glowing red sun. Kane put it on the wall. He didn't say a word. But Carell saw it. She saw everything. She didn't say it aloud for many cycles. But it built in her chest, quietly, steadily, like a song waiting for voice. She watched him every day. Saw how gently he taught Vila to fly a simulator. How carefully he trimmed the sharp edges off her new boots so they wouldn't hurt her feet. How patiently he waited when Carell struggled with a human dialect. He never mocked her. He never made her feel less. And at night, when sleep clung close and soft winds hummed through the vents, Carell found herself whispering things into the dark she never dared speak. "Take me too, human. Take me where you go. Not because I owe you. Not because I must. But because I want to." The opportunity came unexpectedly. Kane was offered permanent residency on the terraformed Ark world of Haven 6. Clean air. Better soil. Fresh starts for volunteers who had proven themselves. He was allowed to bring one dependent. He told them Vila was his. No hesitation. No stammer. The official entered her name into the manifest. When he told Carell, her heart stopped. "They accepted her?" "They accepted both of you," he said. "If you want to come." She stared at him. "I'm not a child. I'm not your blood." He looked her dead in the eyes. "You're something else. Something more." Carell's hands trembled. She touched his cheek. "I will go," she said. "Not as one you saved, but as one who chooses." Kane held her for a long moment. He didn't need to speak. The warmth between them said everything. On the launch day, Vila wore a tiny pilot's badge Kane had made from scrap. Carell held her hand tightly as they walked across the docking bridge. The ship loomed above them, silver and blue, like a blade carved for moonlight. Kane offered his hand. Carell took it. Not out of tradition. Not out of duty. But out of hope. And as the ship ascended, carrying them towards something unknown and unspoken, Carell whispered the words she had held for so long. "I'm yours too, human." The ship glided through the void in silence, save for the gentle pulse of its internal systems and the soft hum of life carried forward. Carell stood by the viewport, her hand resting lightly on the glass. Vila was asleep in the cot beside her, her breathing steady, wrapped in the same thermal blanket Kane had first given her on Saphen 3. Haven 6 was still a full cycle away. Kane had offered her the larger bunk. She had refused. There was comfort in watching stars pass by, a reminder that even when worlds ended, the universe kept moving. That perhaps, somewhere in its infinite heart, there was still room for beginning again. She didn't turn when Kane stepped into the small cabin. But she felt his presence. "Always. You should rest," he said. "I will. After." "After what?" "After I've memorized every constellation out this window," she said softly. Kane leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "You planning to name them all?" She smiled faintly. "Only the ones that don't already belong to someone else." There was silence for a few heartbeats.
Then she turned to him.
What do humans do when they start over?
He shrugged. Depends. Some build.
Some forget.
Some run.
And you?
He looked her in the eyes.
I look for people who want to stay. Landing on Haven, Six felt like waking from a long dream.
The air was clean, too clean, by Carell's senses.
The sky a gentle rose gold in the mornings, deepening to indigo by night. Wind stirred grass that shimmered like polished silver under twin moons. They were assigned a residential pod in New Faraday, a settlement designed for multicultural integration. Artificial gravity was perfectly balanced, power systems solar stable, and the housing clean enough to pass for upper-tier colonial luxury. But none of that mattered to Vila.
She had space.
Real, running, laughing, falling over her own feet space. And a garden cube where she planted seeds Carell had smuggled off Saphen, 3 in the lining of her cloak. The child adapted faster than either adult had expected. She had friends within a week. Within a month, she spoke fluent Earth Common and made Kane teach her how to cook something called eggs. Carell, meanwhile, found herself lingering, watching Kane more closely. She had hoped the distance from war, death, and broken cities would calm her heart. Instead, it made her feel everything more. She took a role in the Community Education Dome, teaching linguistic nuance and alien-to-human phonetic translation. Her voice, once confined to whispered songs and survival commands, now shaped young minds. Kane returned to engineering, overseeing atmospheric regulators, fusion grid alignment, and drone calibration. But he came home every day at the same time.
Always.
Carell found herself waiting for that door hiss.
For his boots. His voice. His presence. It felt more permanent now. Not survival. Not accident. Not fate. Something chosen. And that terrified her.
One evening, after Vila had fallen asleep with her face in a drawing pad and markers still clutched in her fingers, Carell found herself on the back terrace of their pod, staring out at the horizon where twin moons rose like watchful eyes.
Kane joined her, holding 2 mugs. He handed one to her. Still too hot, he said. I don't mind.
They drank in silence.
Then she spoke.
I dreamed of you.
Before the storm ended.
Kane looked sideways.
Yeah.
I didn't know your face.
But I knew your voice.
You were saying something I couldn't understand, but I still believed it. What do you think I said? Carell didn't blink.
Stay.
Kane was quiet for a long time. Then carefully, he reached for her hand.
She let him. She didn't speak again that night. Neither did he.
But their hands remained intertwined until the stars dulled into dawn.
Months passed.
Haven, 6 grew. More settlers arrived.
More systems stabilized.
Children played in the hydroparks.
Markets opened. A council formed.
And one day, a human child fell from a maintenance scaffold, bones broken, bleeding. Vila was the first to run to him. She cried out for help in 3 languages. Held his hand while medics rushed in. When Kane and Carell arrived, the boy was already being lifted onto a stretcher. But the medic turned and said, she kept him calm. Talked him through the fear. That night, Kane knelt beside Vila and asked her how she knew what to do. She said, you always told me to help people. Even if they're scared.
Then she hugged him.
And whispered, you're my real dad, right? Kane's voice broke when he said, yeah, kiddo.
I am. Carell wept that night. Alone.
Because she wasn't just watching a human save her daughter anymore. She was watching him be her father. And that made everything inside her ache. She told herself it was enough. That her child had love. That safety had returned. That Kane had no obligation to her. But every time she touched his arm, or lingered at the doorway while he smiled at Vila, or heard him humming some old Earth tune while fixing the food processor, her soul screamed to reach for more. She was no longer afraid of the past. Now she feared the future. One where she stayed silent forever. The confession came unexpectedly.
It wasn't planned.
Carell was adjusting the humidity levels in the greenhouse module. Kane had come in, shirt stained with oil and dust from a broken vent panel. He leaned against the doorframe. You keep this place alive.
Carell didn't look up.
It's not just plants that need tending.
No, he said. It's people too. She turned. And for the first time, he looked at her, not like a friend.
Not like an ally.
But like something more. Her heart stuttered. She stepped forward.
Close enough that she could hear his breath. I've never asked you for anything, she said.
I know.
But I'm asking now.
Kane's voice dropped. What do you need?
Karel looked up at him, eyes dark shimmering. You took in my child. You gave her a life. A father. He opened his mouth, but she stopped him. And now I want to ask. She inhaled sharply.
Take me too, human. Kane froze.
Then slowly, he reached out and touched her cheek.
Soft.
Like he was touching something sacred. I've been waiting, he said.
Why?
Because I needed you to want it. Karel whispered, I do.
He kissed her.
And the universe didn't shift.
It didn't explode.
It simply became quiet. As if the stars themselves paused to honor something rare. They didn't make an announcement. Didn't declare anything. But soon, the other settlers noticed. That Karel leaned into Kane when they sat. That Kane watched her like someone memorizing a prayer. That Vila now called her family whole. And when the registration files updated to list them as Unit 1, Family Designation, Thorn Karel, no one questioned it. Because sometimes, family wasn't born.
It was built.
On the one-year cycle of the Quake's anniversary, Karel returned to the memorial archive alone. Kane had offered to go.
She said no.
She needed to face it. Inside, etched into glowing glass panels, were the names of every lost colonist. Her mate's name was there. She stood before it for a long time. Then she whispered, "Thank you for loving me once."
She touched the glass. And then she turned away. Not with bitterness. But with peace.
When she returned home, Vila ran into her arms. Kane waited nearby. Karel kissed her daughter's forehead. Then looked at the man who had become her new world.
No words. Just a slow, shared breath. They didn't need anything else. Later, as they lay in bed beneath a skylight humming with filtered starlight, Kane traced the markings on Karel's back, ancient Zalanan script, barely visible to most eyes. What does it mean? He asked.
She smiled faintly. It means survivor of the storm.
Kane nodded. Fitting.
Karel turned, resting her head on his chest. I used to believe I was broken. You were never broken. I was alone.
Not anymore. She closed her eyes.
I don't want to be just a survivor.
He kissed her brow.
Then don't be.
And she wasn't. Not anymore.